Are you a busy parent? Do you feel like you're being pulled in multiple directions all at once? Are you exhausted and overwhelmed? Meet my mom. Her name is Santi Tanikella. She's a pediatrician, expert in mind-body medicine, and a life coach. She can help you break free from guilt and overwhelm so that you can enjoy the life that you've worked so hard to create. She can also teach you how to support your family in a more holistic way.
Welcome back to the I Am Well MD podcast, where we explore practical, evidence-informed ways to help you and your family become healthier, more resilient, and more authentic versions of yourselves. I'm Dr. Santi Tanikella. I'm a board-certified pediatrician, integrative medicine physician, and life coach. And today we're talking about something that comes up every August and September. How do we help our children become more resilient as they start a new school year? Maybe your child is starting kindergarten. Maybe they're moving to elementary school, middle school, or high school. Maybe they're entering a completely new school. Or maybe they're returning to a familiar school, but facing new academic expectations, new teachers, changing friendships, extracurricular pressures, or simply the normal emotional ups and downs that come with growing up. As parents, we naturally want to make the transition easier. We want our children to feel confident. We want them to make friends. We want them to succeed academically. And when we see them struggling, our instinct can be to jump in and fix the problem. But here's an important distinction. Our job isn't to make sure our children never struggle. Our job is to help them develop the skills and confidence to know that I can handle hard things. And that is the heart of resilience. So let's start by defining resilience. Resilience isn't simply being tough. It doesn't mean never crying. It doesn't mean always being positive. And it certainly doesn't mean that children should figure out everything on their own. Resilience is the capacity to adapt, recover, learn, and move forward when something is difficult. A resilient child can say, "This is hard. I'm disappointed. I don't know what to do." And eventually transition to, "What can I try next?" This is a very different mindset from everything has to go perfectly. Think about what happens when a child encounters something difficult at school. Maybe they don't make the soccer team. Maybe they get a lower grade than what they expected. Maybe a friend doesn't invite them to a birthday party. Perhaps they get corrected by a teacher. Maybe they walk into the cafeteria and don't know where to sit. Maybe they're anxious about raising their hand. Maybe they're comparing themselves with other classmates. Those moments can feel enormous to a child, and our response as parents can either unintentionally communicate, "This problem is too big for you," or "This is hard, but I believe you can work through it." That second message is incredibly powerful. One of the biggest misconceptions about resilience is that we teach it by giving children advice. We say, "Don't worry, you'll be fine. Just ignore them. You need to be more confident. Don't let it bother you." But resilience isn't built primarily through lectures. It's built through experience. A child experiences a challenge. They experience an emotion. They try something. Maybe it doesn't work. They adjust. They try again. And eventually they discover, "I survived that. I figured it out. I got better." That experience becomes evidence, and children need evidence that they are capable. So, as we approach a new school year, I want parents to think less about how do I prevent my child from having a hard time, and more about how do I help my child know what to do when a hard time happens. That's a subtle but important shift. So let's talk about some practical tools. I like to think about resilience as a toolkit. Your child doesn't need every tool, but they do need to discover which tools work for them. Tool number 1, name the feeling. The first step is helping children recognize what's happening internally. Instead of I'm fine. We want children to eventually be able to say, I'm nervous, I'm frustrated, I'm embarrassed, I'm disappointed, I'm worried I'm going to mess up. When children can name an emotion, they have more ability to work with it. So before school starts, practice asking, what are you most excited about? And also you can ask, what are you a little worried about? Not, you're worried, right? But what might feel hard? This line of questioning creates space for honesty. Let's talk about tool number 2, how to separate feelings from actions. This is especially important for younger kids. We can teach that all feelings are okay. Not all behaviors are okay. You can be angry, but you can't hit someone. You can be frustrated. You can't throw a chair. You can be nervous. You can still raise your hand. You can be disappointed. And you can still congratulate someone else. This helps children understand that emotions don't have to control behavior. Tool number 3, the pause. One of the most powerful resilience skills is learning how to pause. When something happens, stop, breathe, notice, then choose. You can teach your child to take one slow breath before responding. In fact, let's all do it together right now. Deep breath in and out. This is all part of emotional self-regulation. So when we do it, our children are more likely to follow. For a younger kid, you can make it playful. You could say something like, let's pretend to smell the flower. Or blow out the candle. That tiny pause, that breath, that creates space between the emotion and the action. And that space is where self-regulation happens. Let's talk about helping children handle school anxiety. A new school year naturally brings some uncertainty, and uncertainty is uncomfortable. We don't need to eliminate uncertainty for our children. We need to teach them how to tolerate it. Instead of saying, don't be nervous, we can instead try saying, it's okay to feel nervous when you're doing something new. Then, what would help you feel a little more prepared? Maybe they want to walk through the school, meet the teacher, practice opening their lunch container. Maybe they want to know where the bathroom is. Or maybe they want to practice introducing themselves. Those small preparations can transform an enormous unknown into a series of manageable steps. And here's another important concept. Confidence often comes after action, not before it. We sometimes think that once our child feels confident, they'll try it. But often it's the opposite. They try, they discover they can handle it, and then confidence grows. All right, part 5. Let's try not to rescue our kids too quickly. This one can be difficult for parents because watching your child struggle is hard. Imagine your child says that they can't do their homework. Our instinct might be to have them give it to us and help them. Let's imagine that they say, I don't know how to make friends. And we start arranging play dates, emailing teachers, or trying to solve the social situation. Sometimes intervention is absolutely appropriate. But before jumping in, ask yourself, is my child asking me to solve this or asking me to help them think through it? There is a difference. Try asking, what have you already tried? What do you think you could do next? Would you like ideas, or do you want me to listen? That last question can be incredibly useful. Sometimes kids don't need a solution, they need connection. Part 6, teach problem solving. Here's a simple framework you can teach your child. Stop, think, options, choose, Then check. Let's say your child says, "No one wants to play with me at recess." Instead of immediately saying, "I'll talk to your teacher," try, stop. What happened? Think. What are some possible reasons? Options. What could you do tomorrow? Maybe I could ask someone if I can play. I could ask a different group. I could play something else. Or I could talk to my teacher. Then choose. Pick one strategy, and afterwards, check. How did it go? That's resilience training. You're teaching your child how to think through problems rather than teaching them that mom or dad will always solve the problem. The truth is, if a parent or guardian is always solving the problem, they're going to turn 18 one day, and they're going to have to leave the nest one day, and they're going to have difficulty launching. So yes, there needs to be a little bit of friction in your kids' lives. Part 7. Let's talk about friendships and resilience. For many kids, the hardest part of starting school isn't academics, it's friendships. Not surprising there. Especially around elementary and middle school, social experiences can have a huge emotional impact. So let's give children actual language. Instead of telling your child, "Just make friends," teach them what to say. They can try, "Hey, what's your name? What are you guys playing? Can I join? Do you like soccer? What games do you play? Do you mind if I sit here?" Simple. Kids don't need a perfect conversation, they need a starting point, and they need to understand that not every interaction will work. Someone might say no, someone might not respond, someone might already have a group. That doesn't mean nobody likes me. It means that interaction didn't work. Let's try another door. That is resilience. All right, let's move on to part 8, the growth mindset. Another major component of resilience is how children interpret difficulty. Compare "I'm bad at math" with "math is hard for me right now." Those statements are very different. The first is an identity. The second is a challenge. So I'm going to ask you to try adding the word "yet." I don't understand this yet. I can't do this yet. I haven't made a friend yet. I haven't figured this out yet. The word "yet" creates possibility. But we also need to be careful not to turn growth mindset into toxic positivity. Sometimes things really are hard. Sometimes children fail. Sometimes they're disappointed. We don't need to say, "Everything is great." We can say, "This is hard," and we can figure out what to do next. That's more honest. Moving on to part 9, praise the process. Another simple change that we parents can make is changing what we praise. Instead of saying, "You're so smart," try, "I noticed how you kept working even when that was difficult." Instead of saying, "You're a great athlete," try, "You practiced that skill over and over." Perhaps instead of, "You're so good at making friends," try, "I noticed you introduced yourself even though you were nervous." We're reinforcing behaviors that children can control. Effort, persistence, preparation, courage, flexibility, kindness, problem solving. Those are resilience muscles. Part 10, create a family culture of resilience. Resilience isn't just something we teach our children. It's something they observe. Children watch how we respond when we make mistakes, we're late, something doesn't go according to plan, we get frustrated, someone disagrees with us, we fail. So consider letting your children hear you say, "This didn't go the way I expected. I'm disappointed. I'm going to take a breath and figure out what to do next." That's powerful modeling. You're showing them that adults struggle too. And they regulate. They problem solve and try again. That's a resilience lesson without a single worksheet. Part 11, let's talk about a back-to-school resilience routine. I'd like to give you a simple routine you can use during the first few weeks of school. At dinner, in the car, or before bed, ask your child 3 questions. What went well today? This helps them notice successes. What was hard? This question normalizes challenges. And the third question is, what will you try tomorrow? This shifts the focus towards agency. And if your child says, nothing went well, don't argue. You can say something like, okay, what was one tiny thing that wasn't terrible? Sometimes resilience starts with finding one small win. Part 12. When children need more support. Now, I want to make an important distinction. Resilience should never be used to dismiss a child's distress. If a child is experiencing persistent anxiety, significant changes in mood or behavior, they're refusing to go to school, their sleep is disrupted, if there are frequent physical complaints, if there's bullying, social isolation, or difficulty functioning, that's more than a simple resilience lesson. That's an opportunity to look more closely and involve appropriate professional support. This is where I want to emphasize. Resilience is not the same thing as tolerating unhealthy situations. We want children to learn when to persevere, and we also want them to know when to ask for help. A resilient child doesn't say, I have to handle everything myself. A resilient child learns that they can try, and they know when to reach out. Asking for help is a strength, not a weakness. All right, so moving on to part 13, I'm going to challenge you parents out there. So here's my challenge for you as the new school year begins. I would like for you to pick one resilience skill to focus on, not 10, just one. Maybe it's emotional awareness, maybe it's problem solving, maybe it's friendship skills, managing frustration, asking for help. Then look for opportunities to practice it. Do not wait for a crisis. You want to practice this when the stakes are low. If your child gets frustrated because the Lego structure falls apart, if they lose a board game, if they don't get the role they wanted at school, if homework feels difficult, these are all opportunities to practice resilience. We don't need to create adversity. We simply need to use everyday adversity as a laboratory for learning. If you're listening to this and thinking, I know my child is capable, but I don't always know how to help them build these skills, that's exactly where coaching can be helpful. I work with kids and families to build practical skills around areas such as confidence, resilience, emotional awareness, social skills, goal setting, organization, stress management, and school readiness and adjustment. The goal isn't to tell a child who they should be. It's to help them discover their strengths and develop the tools to navigate challenges more effectively. For children, coaching should be active and engaging. We use age-appropriate exercises, role-playing, problem-solving activities, and real-life challenges. And importantly, we can help parents learn how to reinforce these skills at home. So if your child is preparing for a new school, struggling with confidence, having trouble navigating friendships, or simply wants to develop stronger communication and resilience skills, I'd love to help. You can learn more about my coaching services at iamwellmd.com. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with one thought. When we think about school success, we often focus on grades, reading, math, homework, test scores. But some of the most important skills our children will carry into adulthood won't appear on a report card. Some of these important skills include the ability to recover after disappointment, to ask for help, to communicate, to regulate difficult emotions, to try again, Maybe it includes the ability to walk into an unfamiliar room and say, "Hi, my name is so-and-so. What's your name?" Those are life skills, and we don't build them by making our children's lives perfectly smooth. We build them by giving our children the support, practice, and confidence to navigate the bumps along the way. So, as you send your child into the next school year, instead of asking only, "How can I make sure my child succeeds?" try asking, "What skills can I help my child practice so they know they can handle whatever comes next?" Because ultimately, resilience isn't about raising children who never struggle. It's about raising children who can internally tell themselves things like, "I can face hard things. I can learn. I can ask for help. I can try again. And I'm capable of figuring things out." Thank you for joining me today on the I Am Well MD podcast. Have a great beginning to the school year. If you found this episode was helpful, please share this with another parent who's getting ready for the new school year. And if you'd like support helping your child develop confidence, resilience, communication, and school readiness skills, visit me at iamwellmd.com to learn more about coaching. Until next time, remember, you don't have to be perfect to grow. Small steps count. And sometimes the most powerful thing we can give our children is not a solution, but the confidence to discover that they can find one.
Hey, if you like what you're hearing, give this podcast a 5-star rating and share it with your friends and family. If you want to learn more about my mom and what she does, visit her at iamwellmd.com and subscribe to her email list. If you leave her a comment, you might just get a shout out in her next podcast episode. If you'd like coaching or support, she has programs available for you and your whole family. My mom is a great pediatrician and a great person, and I hope you like her podcast episodes. Have a great day. Goodbye.
The information shared on the I Am Well MD podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Listening to this podcast does not establish a doctor-patient relationship. All health-related decisions should be made in consultation with your personal medical provider. The views and opinions expressed by me are my own and do not necessarily reflect those of my guests, employers, or affiliated institutions. Likewise, the views of any guest do not necessarily represent my personal or professional opinions. The content shared on this podcast is intended to inspire thoughtful conversation and reflection, not to provide medical diagnosis or treatment.